I recently went airsofting at Rednal Combat near Oswestry Street in Shropshire. The site itself is built on what was RAF Rednal, which began operational service in 1942 as a training base for fighter pilots. One thing that struck me as I drove upon the entrance of the site was a Westland Wessex Helicopter acting as a gate guardian. In 2011,
Wessex RJ468
was purchased by Rednal Paintball, now called Rednal Combat, for £5,000 from an internet auction. The then manager, Carl Davies, spoke to BBC Shropshire on September 22nd on the purchase of the helicopter. I thought it would just be a shell, but everything was in it. You can get up to the top and sit where the pilots used to sit. It gives you a feeling of what it must have been like flying it.
This Westland Wessex
now stands proudly at the entrance to the site, and the current owners were kind enough to allow me to get inside to film for this video. Once home, I was able to further research deeper into the history of this Wessex and uncovered more details about its service during Operation Corporate in 1982, where she played an important role in the battle for the Falklands Islands. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more military history.
This is Borneo. The machine is the versatile Westland Wessex 5, operational with 848 Squadron of the Royal Navy. Here in the thick, teeming vegetation of the Borneo jungle, this British-built helicopter is doing a man-sized job, carrying out a daily routine which is the backbone of the British Security Forces transport system operating in this difficult area.
The Westland Wessex was introduced into the British Armed Forces in 1961. The helicopter first saw military service in the jungles of Borneo, where it gained a reputation for being a reliable transporter of men and equipment.
Wessex RJ468 was built in 1966 and was delivered to the Royal Navy Fleet Air Arm in the late 60s as XT480.
When the Falklands Task Force was mobilised in April 1982,
the helicopter was shipped down to the islands on the SS Atlantic Causeway, which sailed from Devonport on the 12th of May, carrying 8 Sea King helicopters and 20 Wessex helicopters. Her sister ship, the Atlantic Conveyor, was hit by an Exocet missile on the 25th of May, 1982,
fired from an Argentinian fighter jet.
Some miles away, the container ship Atlantic Conveyor was moving towards Falkland Sound to deliver vital supplies to the San Carlos beachhead. The Cunard container ship had been loaded with RAF Harriers, but they flew off some days ago.
Almost all of the conveyor's cargo of helicopters were lost when it was hit by the Exocet. The remaining Wessex and Sea King helicopters that were on Causeway
were instrumental in the ferrying of equipment, men, and the recovery of wounded during the fighting for the islands, as the larger Chinook helicopters that had been planned to do the heavy lifting had been lost when the Atlantic Conveyor was hit. Only one of the 6 Chinook helicopters survived the attack, meaning the men on the ground had to tab or yomp to their objectives on the island, something that has since become synonymous with the campaign.
Wessex RG468's entire service history for the month of May is uncorroborated,
but it is likely she helped haul equipment onto the islands as the British forces amassed arms and ammunition for the final stages of the liberation of the islands and the expected battles for Goose Green and Port Stanley. RFA Sir Galahad was a round-table class landing ship logistics. She had set sail for the Falklands on April 6, 1982, with 250 Royal Marines aboard. She entered San Carlos water on the 21st of May, where she was attacked by Argentinian fighters and bombers. On the 8th of June 1982, Galahad was attempting to land troops of the Welsh Guards at Bluff Cove when she was attacked by 3 Skyhawks. The ship was hit during the attack. Fierce fires quickly started aboard the ship, and a frantic effort to rescue the men aboard was soon underway. A BBC news crew were filming the landings at the time. The late BBC correspondent Brian Hanrahan reported the events as they unfolded.
Lacking adequate radar, the first warning came as the plane swept low over the ships, Sir Tristram and Sir Galahad. The anti-aircraft missiles were not yet effective. Both ships were hit. Sir Galahad was immediately in flames.
Four Sea King helicopters assisted the evacuation of the men aboard Galahad, along with at least one Westland Wessex,
which appears to be Westland RG468.
BBC correspondent Michael Nicholson reported on the heroism of the helicopter crews on the BBC 9 o'clock news on the 9th of June 1982.
I watched one pilot steer his machine slowly and deliberately into the black and hover. He was completely blinded, completely enveloped, and then I saw his crewmen winching down on a line to pick a man out of the sea. 3 times I watched him go down, 3 times he brought men up to the blackness that covered his helicopter above him. Other life rafts began drifting, though, taken by the wind sometimes away from the inferno, but then suddenly towards it. Pilots in the helicopters waiting at the bow, waiting to bring men aboard them, saw what was happening. And immediately 4 of them took their machines to the rear of the ship. By the flames, they came down low, and using the downdraft of their rotor blades, slowly began to push the rubber dinghies away. Slowly, yard by yard, each helicopter taking care of one dinghy full of men, they pushed them to the safety of the beach.
A total of 56 men were killed and 150 were wounded on the 8th of June. The disaster at Bluff Cove counted for 1/5 of all British fatalities during the Falklands War. The actions of the air crews and medical teams on the ground undoubtedly saved many lives due to their quick response to the attack on the landing ships. One thing that I'm reminded of when unexpectedly discovering things such as Wessex helicopters in Shropshire is that history is everywhere.
If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to the channel so you won't miss out on any more military history, and I'll catch you again next time.